Commissioner Reed? Here. Commissioner Peterson?
Present.
Commissioner Blanco?
Here.
Commissioner Perry?
Present.
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner Wilson is absent. Commissioner Vanderwell is absent. Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick? Here. Assistant Community Services Director Ramon Reynolds?
Here.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody from the public that wishes to comment on anything on the agenda or for general public comment. Do we have any public comment? Anybody else wishes to speak? All right, then we will close public comment and move on to approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey.
I'll second that.
And a second from Commissioner Blanco. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And next is approval of the minutes. First is the review and possible approval of the February 4th, 2020 Planning Commission study session.
Madam Chair, all 37 pages of those meeting minutes look good to me. I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey.
I'll second that one as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Blanco. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next is the review and possible approval of the February 6, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioner Fritzos,
I move to approve the minutes.
thank you. You have a second?
I'll make the second.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we are moving on to public hearing items. First, we have PCN 20-0006, consideration of and possible action on a request to amend a final plan development handbook by amending standards for buffer walls, removing parking standards for baseball stadiums, and reducing parking standards for hotels and motor coach dealer service areas for a site generally located north of I-80, south of Prater Way, and west of Sparks Boulevard at Legends.
Evening,
Thank
Chair
you,
Reed,
Dani.
members of the Planning Commission. I'm Dani Ray, planner. As stated, we're here to look at an amendment to the Legends Plan Development Handbook. That area is located here. If you look on your screen and outlined in red is the Legends Handbook Planned Development Area, covered by the Legends Handbook. The amendments that we're going to be looking at this evening apply to the entire planned development. We're looking at modifying some parking standards to 4.25 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area for most uses in the development. As you stated, we're removing parking standards for baseball stadiums, since that's baseball stadiums no longer being contemplated for the site. We're also excluding hotels and automotive service areas for that 4.25 per 1,000. The luxury motor coach dealer, or RV, and automotive service businesses shall require 4.0 spaces per 1,000 square feet of office and sales area, and 1 space per 1,000 square feet of service area. And hotels will change their parking requirement from the 4.25 per 1,000 to 1 space per room and 1 space per 800 square feet of restaurant or public meeting area, which is the same as the Sparks Municipal Code. Developer will provide a cumulative parking analysis to staff upon request. That is a modification from the current requirement, which requires the developer to submit a cumulative parking analysis with every single tenant improvement and every single business license. which is quite onerous to the developer and to staff as well in terms of time and resources in evaluating that parking analysis, which is really unnecessary. So they're proposing to modify that so that it's only upon request from staff that we will receive that. And modifications to buffering and wall standards. The previous standard was buffer walls shall be constructed of masonry where required. They're proposing to add block or precast panels. Those precast panels are made from concrete and are the same height, same dimensions. They just offer, my phone keeps falling out of my pocket, I'm sorry. Offer an alternative choice. And they're also removing Exhibit A92 and our 9.2 and keeping A 9.1, which shows the two different types of panels or wall types. So the findings for this, if you can bear with me, there are a few findings for this. We're looking for conformance with the comprehensive plan, the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan, Nevada and federal law, and consistency with surrounding land uses and consistency with the entire development. So the requested modifications in the language regarding the buffer walls clarify what materials may be used in the design and construction of those walls. The walls provide a buffer between the commercial uses and more sensitive residential uses, supporting goals CC1, and provide a placemaking design element that is particular to the Legends development and supporting goal MG1. The modified parking standards bring the handbook into conformance with the Sparks Municipal Code standards for some uses while revising parking standards to reflect the elimination of the baseball stadium use and supporting goals MG6 and MG3. Proposed amendments to the handbook do not change the types of land uses permitted within the plan development, only certain development standards related to parking and buffer walls, and only in a manner that does not adversely affect surrounding uses. Because there's no changes to this amendment, in this amendment to the development of the site, and only parking ratios, the materials and design elements of buffer walls, the efficient development and preservation of the entire plan development are not affected. Maintaining the public interest. Fiscal analysis was not required for this amendment because there are no proposed changes to densities or types of land uses. As discussed in the analysis section above in the staff report, the clarification of allowed materials and design types for buffer walls does not affect adversely the adjacent residential uses. The walls serve as the buffer between uses, and again, the placemaking element, identifying Legends development and delineating gathering spaces within the development, furthering the mutual interests of residents and the property owners themselves within the development. There are no proposed changes to those land uses permitted. Parking ratios for the hotels is reduced. It would now conform to the Sparks Municipal Code, and the overall parking account is reduced by 95 spaces for the entire site. But that does take into account that there's no baseball stadium anymore. So practically speaking, it improves parking availability for visitors to the plan development. And again, will not result in any changes that adversely affect the public interest, as I just explained. Does not adversely affect the enjoyment of land abutting upon or across the street from the planned development or the public interest, because there are no land use changes. It's simply the walls and the parking standards. And it's not granted solely to confer a private benefit upon any person, because these do apply to the entire planned development as a whole. And the public notice was given, and to all property owners within the Legends planned development and within 750 feet of the Legends planned development boundary. A total of 104 notices were mailed to property owners on February 19th, 2020, and public notice was also published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on February 21st. That concludes my report. I'm here, and the applicant is here as well to answer any questions. We did have two public comments, one email, one written that I passed along to you, and he is here to address those issues if you'd like.
All right, thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Carey.
Yeah, just a minor technical question. I'm just curious, in terms of reducing the requirement of requiring a parking analysis for every tenant improvement, which circumstances would staff envision in the future where you would require a cumulative parking analysis?
We had contemplated once yearly, as sort of a regular update. That's not written in stone. It's just something that as we get, it fills up, we get more development on the site, we may need to look at that, especially if we have a larger development come in, more hotels, more multifamily, larger, well, there's not that many pads left available.
Yeah.
But sometimes the uses, for example, in the old Best Buy building, we had some inquiries of possibly a gym going in there, and that has a significantly higher parking requirement. Practically speaking, it's still going to be parked at 4.25 per 1,000, but it's just something that we want to look at and keep tabs on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Armando.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Armando Reynolds, Assistant Community Services Director. Just to elaborate on Ms. Ray's point, there's really, a couple of vacant areas that are of any size. One is, of course, where the proposed casino is going. The other is a portion of the site adjacent to the RV dealership that was, again, formerly intended to be a Walmart site. If there was a use that was coming in there that really was different from what is contemplated in terms of by the plan development with regard to, more traditional retail, then yes, staff would be asking for a parking analysis.
Any other? Commissioner Blako.
Just to follow up, you do reserve the right to ask anybody as they submit their application. Okay.
Yes.
Questions? All right, would the applicant like to come up and add any additional information, comments?
It's on.
Chairman, Commissioners, Frank Beatart with Odyssey Engineering. The other day at the workshop, we were handed a couple of these notices. The neighbors had some concerns with this public hearing, and we just wanted to address their comments right now. I reached out to Red Development. Working with them, we contacted the RV dealership, and one of the neighbors, located right here at the end of the canal, was really having a problem, and I don't blame them, with power washing occurring in the storage area back here behind the RV dealership. We contacted the RV dealership because we were kind of wondering why, since they have a wash bay inside the building at the end of the building, why they were doing this in the parking lot. Well, what we found out was they were having a real problem with the drain inside the building. They're well aware of it. Because of the problem, they've gone out and purchased a power washer and were washing out in the parking lot instead of actually working within the wash bay within the building. What we've been told by them is that they're hoping by the end of the month, they actually have a contractor lined out to go in there, fix that floor, and start utilizing that interior wash bay at that time. They've also told us that they are going to discontinue doing exterior washing within the storage area and bothering the neighbors out there. That was the first notice we got. The second one was from this neighbor right here, and their concern was, seeing all of the RVs over the top of the wall from their home. It's kind of a bad condition right now, and we understand that. This is gonna be a possible future parking lot or some development in the future, but right now, we're most likely anticipating this is gonna be a parking lot. With that, there's gonna be a slope developed that'll actually raise this grade here at this end. And we'll have that ability at that time to actually do some tree planting at the top of that slope that will help this neighbor out at that time. I don't know when this is gonna occur, but we do plan it in the future. But we're hoping that will address those concerns for those neighbors concerning those issues. If you have any questions?
Is there any way to follow up on the wash bay issue? You said that it would be a month.
What we've been told is they want to start like the third week in March, and by planning commission, hopefully that will be completely done. This has to go to city council.
City council?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners for the applicant? Any further? Okay, with that, let's open it up for public comment on this item. Is there any public comment? Anybody wishes to, come on down. Just make sure you fill out a comment card. Oh, do we have any cards?
You can do that afterwards.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay,
Can you state your name?
I'm Barbara Milchek. I live on Bay Shore Drive at the marina. I have faith that they will take care of that wash thing. I'm at 7th House Inn and I could watch them wash, and the noise was prohibitive. But I'm concerned about the wall. We see all of those mobile homes or trailer things, whatever they are, and I like to see that wall be higher. It would help with the noise. I'm concerned about this, what looks to me like a plastic wall, as opposed to the stone wall that we now have that's apparently going to disappear. I just want to make sure that our neighborhood is respected and that our homes, that we love that area. It's just wonderful. But I'm afraid that without a wall there, that will really block that view and the noise, the movement in and out. That I'd just like some reassurance for that, please. Okay?
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishes to, don't forget to fill out a card. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, with that, oh, is there another one? Oh, come on down. Or up.
I'm William Limo. I live at 1195. I'm closest to the RV place. And I don't know how they got away with putting a vinyl wall there that is short, that you can see the top of the RVs, and it sounds like they're gonna address this pressure washer problem, hopefully. How did they get away with putting a vinyl wall when it wasn't zoned for it, when everybody else was required to put in something more quality? How can a neighborhood have a say in such a matter? I'm asking questions.
Yeah, we can't address your questions, but we will bring staff or the applicant back up and address those for you. Okay?
Okay. If I could have a way about it, the wall that is for the hotel should match all the other businesses. Right now, we got 3 different walls there now. So I'll fill my paper out.
Any other people wish to comment? All right, with that, we will close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Any commissioners have questions?
Yeah, maybe if staff could address the public comment about the wall that was constructed,
The vinyl wall?
the vinyl wall,
Yeah.
yeah.
My understanding is that vinyl wall is an interior wall, and we don't regulate interior walls. It's the border wall is what's regulated in the handbook, and that's made out of masonry or the concrete panel.
Yeah, Ian Crittenden, Development Services Manager for the record. I was heavily involved when all of this kind of started down this process. The exterior wall is the buffer wall that's required in the Plan Development Handbook. There's an exterior wall that is required. That vinyl wall is an additional fence that the applicant or the property owner or developer put up as part of their interior side design. And so it's not held to the requirement to be that buffer wall that's in the handbook. And so the amendments that are happening to, that are being requested to the handbook will address what that exterior buffer wall could be made of, but they aren't addressing interior fencing and what they can be made of. The code does not require them to have any specific material for those interior walls. And so that's how that wall or that fence, that vinyl fencing went in, was because they're allowed to use other materials inside of the area, but they are just required to have a masonry wall as their buffer wall. I hope that addressed that question.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanco?
Do we know about the difference in height between the buffer wall and the interior vinyl wall? Is it significantly higher to where it's all you can really see?
So there is a grade change from essentially Windsurfer Drive along the west side of kind of the northwest side of Legends, and where that wall is that the RV dealership put in, the vinyl wall that they put in for their own internal wall kind of screening things. There is a significant height difference. But there's no regulation in the code or in the handbook that addresses, you know, if that is or is not allowed. We would assume it's allowed without any sort of specific mention addressing that. So while that exterior buffer wall has specific requirements, interior walls, whether the grade changes or not, are allowed to be, you know, however they want, as long as they comply with the Sparks Municipal Code, where their handbook is silent.
Nothing as far as how far set back that interior wall needs to be as well. It could be right up against that buffer wall if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no requirement for separation between fences.
You know, perhaps the applicant could talk to the neighbors and try to work on a solution. Would you like to come back up?
Yeah, I did bring up one issue. I was told by both the RV dealership and the Red Development that, you know, we could go back here and intensify the landscaping a little bit, plant a few more trees to help break that up. And they said they would be willing to look at that.
Any other questions? All right. Any further discussion by the commissioner or motion?
Or go ahead and make a motion.
Head Commissioner Blanco.
I move to forward to City Council a recommendation of approval of the request to amend the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook PCN 20-0006 based on the findings A through J and the facts supporting those findings as set forth in the staff report.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pritsos. Any further discussion?
Question concerning the motion. Excuse me. The staff report lists out the findings A and B, and then it's PDC through PDJ. I believe Commissioner Blanco's motion was findings A through J. Do we need to modify the motion or change? Because it's different than what's listed in the staff report.
A through PDJ. That would work.
I'm sorry, Allison McCormick for the record. Could you restate your question?
Yeah, I'm fine with the motion. My question is, the staff report lists out the findings. It's listed as finding A, finding B, and then it's finding PDC and then through PDJ. Commissioner Blako's motion was findings A through J. Does the motion need to be amended to reflect what's in the staff report?
Again, Allison McCormick for the record. The findings in the code are listed out just A through J, so I think Commissioner Blako's motion as stated fits, but I do understand the confusion based on the body of the staff report.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anything else? All right, we have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have PCN 20-0004. Consideration of and possible action on a request for a conditional use permit to allow a 144-room hotel on a site approximately 1.86 acres in size located at 790 East Lincoln Way in the mixed-use district zoning. Thank you.
Chair Reed, members of the Planning Commission, Ian Crittenden, Development Services Manager. As stated, this is a request by Sandpiper Lodging Trust for a conditional use permit for a 144-room hotel on a site that's roughly or approximately 1.86 acres in size. The site is located at, as was also stated, 790 East Lincoln Way. You can see here on the map, the site is outlined in red. It is on the corner of Howard and Lincoln here. The site was developed as an office in 1962. There was a special use permit approved in 1981 to build a larger office and 24 multifamily units. As we can see, that was never constructed, and that approval has since expired. There was also additional application made in 1997 to locate a nursery and garden center at that site, but was ultimately withdrawn prior to any action. The site is in the mixed-use district, in the mixed-use commercial portion of the mixed-use district, and hotels are permitted. Hotels of 20 or more rooms are permitted in this portion of the mixed-use district, subject to a conditional use permit. So this hotel is proposed as 144 rooms on 4 stories. Each of those 4 floors would be 16,315 square feet for a total of 65,520 square feet of building. In the mixed-use district, they have minimum floor area ratios, so your building has to be a percentage of your total lot area. As proposed, or in this location on the mixed-use district, that minimum is 0.75, and as proposed, this hotel is 0.8. So they are meeting that minimum requirement for the floor area ratio for this development. Required parking, as Danny already covered for me, for hotels is 1 space per room and 1 space per 800 square feet of restaurant or public meeting space. As proposed, this hotel will not have a restaurant or any public meeting spaces, so their parking requirement is for 144 parking spaces. They're providing 133 of those parking spaces on site and providing 15 on street parking, as is permitted in the mixed-use district, so they are providing a total of 148 parking spaces in compliance with the code. The applicant did do a trip generation analysis as part of their application, and looking at this site, they are showing 630 average daily trips with 44 AM peak trips and 51 PM peak trips. The trigger for when a full traffic study is required, those traffic studies being the main vehicle by which we require offsite improvements related to traffic, is at 80 peak hour trips. Being significantly under that, they weren't required to do a full traffic study, and no offsite improvements are being required at this time. The required landscaping for sites in this portion of the mixed-use district is 10% of the site, and that is exactly what the applicant is proposing in their landscape plan. There are significant development standards in the mixed-use district that relate to building elevations and the articulation of them. The articulation provided by the applicant in their elevations does meet those standards. There is elevations show a variation in both color and plane, both horizontally and vertically. And they are in compliance with the design standards for the mixed-use district. I had public comment a little early in this presentation, normally talk about it at the end, but I only did receive one instance of public comment for this item. It was just a phone call concerned about the development of the site and whether or not there would be easy access to parking on adjacent lots. But the design of this site is showing curbs and landscaping along the perimeter of the lot, so there won't be an easy access to parking on adjacent lots. I don't know if that neighbors here and may want to comment, but I felt like it was more questions versus specific comments or you know, a opinion one way or the other about it, but just concerns and wanting to better understand the project. There are 5 findings related to conditional use permits. We've tried to group these. We're working on making these PowerPoint presentations to make this a little bit less of a painful and long-winded kind of run through all of these, but making sure that we do cover all of the information we need to have a solid record of the action taken by the Planning Commission and the evidence that we've provided for that. So the first C1 and C2, and just kind of to the point of the last item, these really are only findings 1 and 2. We use the C or the PD or T for tentative maps just as a way for us to remember which set of conditions we're in, not necessarily that they have that designation, but they're really just numbered or lettered in the case of planned developments. And so the letter's really more of a key for staff than it is really the real designation for those, just for information's sake. The comprehensive plan land use designation for this site is mixed use district, mixed use commercial. Hotels of this size are permitted subject to a conditional use permit. The site is adjacent to a minor activity center, which is something that is included in the mixed use district's kind of map of where we want more development to happen. And so this area is a prime location for intensification that generates additional pedestrian activity. And that will support goal CC1. Redevelopment and infill of this site as a non-residential land use will diversify the land use mix and in this area and support goals MG1, MG2, and MG4. This site is a developed area of Sparks that already has sidewalks and adjacent infrastructure. And city services are already being provided at acceptable levels at this location, which supports policies C4 and CF1. The proposed hotel use has no inherent compatibility issues with the adjacent land use, as the adjacent land uses to the west, north, and east are all the same zoning district and are all under commercial development now. The multifamily development that's to the south across Lincoln Way, excuse me, we're not anticipating any compatibility issues there either due to the distance between the uses and the inherently slightly similar use of hotels and multifamily. All right, it's findings 3 and 4 for a conditional use permit. Finding C3 really looks at potential impairment of natural resources. Water and sewer is available adjacent to this site in acceptable capacities to facilitate this development. The applicant will have to do some additional legwork before building permits are issued, but that infrastructure is available in there for that development. And then ultimately, the applicant looking for identified impacts. Really, the identified impacts that staff saw on this were concerns related to traffic and parking. And as I stated earlier in my kind of analysis of this, we feel like the applicant was able to sufficiently meet the concerns that we might have had related to this type of development. Public notice is the next finding, finding 5. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on February 21st. In addition, 81 mail-out notices were mailed to property owners within 750 feet. Normally, the mail-out distance for conditional use permits is only 500 feet, but there's also a minimum number of adjacent property owners that need to be noticed, and that wasn't we didn't hit that threshold till 750 feet. So we did mail out 81 notices. Those were mailed on February 19th, and the Planning Commission functions as the public hearing for this item. Staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ian. Do any of the commissioners have questions on this item?
For Ian, I have a comment for the applicant.
Okay. No questions. Can we have the applicant come down? Do you have any additional information? I know Commissioner Blako has a question, but if you'd like to provide additional comment.
Sure. Derek Wilson on behalf of the applicant. I can keep it very simple. First, I think this project is a great fit for the area. I would say it's exactly the sort of investment that the city would want to see in the mixed-use zone and in an activity center. And then just one quick comment for parking and traffic. The analysis that was turned in shows the maximum potential. It shows the hotel at full occupancy. I understand we have to plan for these things, but keep in mind that that would be something that would only be reached at probably certain times of the year. Most hotels don't operate at that full occupancy all the time. So it would be limited times when they'd be generating the numbers that are shown in that traffic report. So that's really all I have. Ian did a great job, so I can answer questions as needed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Blako.
More or less a comment rather than a question. I just hope to see you guys do your due diligence not to disrupt the neighboring businesses. There's one in particular, Safe Embrace, that is directly next to the property. They provide a very invaluable service to our community, and I just want to make sure that they continue to do so unhindered. And I would really appreciate if you could kind of put that as one of your priorities. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you. We'll now open it up for public comment. Did we get any comment cards, or does anybody wish to comment on this item? Thank you. Come on down.
Ron Cobb, I represent Sandpiper Lodging Trust. Back on Commissioner Blako's comment, I reached out, I spoke to the veterinarian hospital next door.
Okay.
Not only are they excited to have something done with this site, but I gave them my name and number, and we're going to work together and make sure, because it's a pretty tight, constricted area for their parking.
It is, and Safe Embrace is a different.
Yeah, I went to Safe Embrace behind there, knocked on their door, 9 o'clock in the morning, you know. So we also spoke to, I left them a message with my phone numbers and emails, and so we will work very closely with the 2 immediate neighbors. We did put a construction fence up today. We're going to start, hopefully, abatement on Monday. And so we'll work very closely with those 2 adjacent neighbors.
Thank you. Can you go ahead and make sure you
I'll
fill out
my
a
little paper
card?
out. Where do I get the little
Yeah,
paper?
I've got to take care of the
Yeah,
general
take care of
business,
business.
make everybody happy. Anybody else wish to comment on this item? With that, let's close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Do you have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions for staff. And Ian, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask about parking, the on-street parking again. I'm curious if, given the proximity to a park and Lincoln or Howard being kind of a throwaway and kind of a corridor from the neighborhood to connect to the marina, does the city envision a bike lane potentially going along Howard? And if allowing on-street parking in this location would prevent that in the future?
I can't speak to that at this time. I don't know whether there are intended bike lanes on Howard at some time in the future. I know that what I can tell you about on-street parking is it's allowed now, and the code does permit us to count that as additional parking for adjacent businesses, homes, what have you, in the mixed-use district. And so if there is a conflict between additional bike lanes and on-street parking, the city will work through that whenever we get to the point of trying to make those improvements, if we do.
Thank you. And a quick follow-up, and I certainly understand the intent of the code, and I think it's a good tool that we have to promote mixed-use development. I'm just kind of concerned about, unintended consequences later on. If we're allowing on-street parking in this location, if we prevent the city from getting a bike lane, or if there's accidents, as there has been in the past, where the police look at getting rid of on-street parking, and then the on-street parking has to go to, it impacts the neighborhood. Just wanted to make sure and ask if staff's kind of anticipated those concerns to the best of their ability at this time.
Absolutely. That is the nature of the mixed-use district. The big push in the mixed-use district is to produce more and more pedestrian activity. And as this site is along what is still designated in the mixed-use district plan as a bus rapid transit route, there is a big push to have more and more pedestrian activity and to essentially curtail the required amount of parking by allowing on-street parking as well, so that we can help kind of move towards a more pedestrian-oriented development down there. And so while I understand the concerns, there's been no comments from public safety regarding their concern about that location.
Glad that's on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion by the commission or a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blako.
I move to approve the conditional use permit CU 20-0003 associated with PCN 20-0004, adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 4 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Blako.
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Pritzos. Any further discussion?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Commissioner
I'd like to
Peterson.
make a comment on this. I am so disappointed in the distance between traffic analysis submitted by an applicant to the level to which it becomes capable of a study says, traffic study. I think in the future, here on, somewhere along the way this fine city is growing with traffic conditions, that somebody's got to lower and somebody's got to come up here so we can meet halfway. I cannot find anything wrong with your findings. I can't find anything wrong with the conditions that I cannot object to this. But I strongly tell you that's a traffic problem on that intersection. And we've got to meet somewhere along the line. Somebody has to develop some kind of standards where we can take a traffic study and from a trip analysis to where it is to a point where it has to become a traffic study. If any condition meets that, this one. So I would like to see in the future that some of our city fathers or somebody get that condition straightened out. And that's just my particular comment on this. I have to support this condition because this amendment, or this motion, sorry. I absolutely support it because of the fact that I can't find any particular things wrong with your findings or the conditions. I have no other objection other than this is a particularly bad intersection for traffic. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Peters.
You've never seen me in this attitude before, have you? Thank you very much for your
Thank you. We have a motion by, any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, we have PCN 20-0002. Consideration of and possible action on a request for conditional use permit to allow a minor recreational facility and indoor shooting range on a site approximately 1.83 acres in size located at 1410 East Prater Way in Sparks and the mixed use district zoning.
Again, good evening, Chair Reed and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Dani Ray, planner. We're here to consider a minor recreational facility in the mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial zoning district. Located here generally west of Sparks Boulevard on the northwest corner of Pullman Drive and Prater Way, located within the Hacienda Shopping Center. Adjacent uses to the north are mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial, mixed-use district residential neighborhood. To the east is mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial, and SF6 single-family residential. To the south is mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial. And to the west is SF6 single-family residential. Proposed floor plan of the building formerly known as, I think it was the old Rite Aid building, the old drugstore that has been vacant for many, many years. The total square footage of the floor is 17,074 square feet. The indoor recreation use is a shooting range to be located at the north. This is the north side up here. Here's the little diagonal opening to the store, which is pretty familiar to most people. So this is the north side where the gun range will be. It's 25% of the total site at 4,200 square feet. The lane right here for the people to be shooting is in this direction towards Pullman. The gym use, which is for combat training, concealed weapon training, general fitness, dietary classes, things like that, is 8,575 square feet. And the store where they would be selling firearms, ammunition, and associated equipment is 3,555 square feet, and small amounts of office, a total 744 square feet. The applicant is proposing different hours of operations for the various uses inside, with the gun range being the most restrictive. They were proposing 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have proposed a condition of approval that expands on that, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., condition number 4, to allow them flexibility in winding things up, closing it down, cleaning it up, as well as allowing for future expansion should their business be successful. The gym is proposed to be open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., as well as the store. These uses, both the retail store and the gym, are permitted uses and are not subject to a conditional use permit. It's only the minor recreational use, the shooting range. This is an example of the construction of the range. Each lane is 3 feet 9 inches for a total of, there'll be 10 lanes for a total of 37 and a half feet wide of the lanes. 4 of the lanes are proposed to be restricted to law enforcement use. Those will be 50 feet long. The remaining 6 lanes would be for public use, and those are 75 feet long. Those lanes are handguns as well as rifle shooting opportunities. These lanes, it's a prefabricated unit. And this can give you a cross-section view. They're prefabricated with all of the safety materials, the sound attenuation materials, venting. You see these up here are steel baffling that redirect high shots into this rubber buffer. These are granulated rubber that absorb the bullets, absorb any of the lead that's circulating in the site. They also provide, oops, let me go back to here. This is another view of it with the buffers, and then the rubber would be back down on this end. That rubber will be periodically picked up and removed and replaced by a service company that specializes in that and takes that material and the lead contained within and disposes of as appropriate and required by law. The range itself, like I said, is prefabricated, and it meets the requirements for the International Building Code 2018, International Mechanical Code 2018, Occupation Safety and Health Administration codes, Environmental Protection Administration, and National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. The data sheets were provided in your staff report that goes over that. And let's see. For sound, significant noise attenuation is provided. Again, these are self-contained units that have wood and wool and other sound attenuation materials, including 12-inch masonry blocks filled with concrete and grout. And as it's placed, if we go back to here, placed in here, that material is placed between the, as you would, the shooting range box and the walls of the building, and then the walls of the building themselves provide sound attenuation. The anticipated noise level from standard street noise documentation that's freely available out there at 300 feet is 62 to 64 decibels at Prater. Given the level of traffic, that's what it is, 62 to 64. Additional noise anticipated from this use is only 3 decibels above those ambient noise levels, which is imperceptible to human hearing, that noise difference of 3. We do have the only code section in our code, SMC 20.04.005B, does state noise shall be muffled so as not to become objectionable due to intermittence, beat, frequency, or shrillness. That's all we have. Staff is fairly convinced from the materials provided that there will not be any perceptible noise outside the building from this shooting range. Parking, the parking demand on the different uses are different, and because of that, here's the site right here is actually their parcel. They are 17 parking spaces short. However, this whole Hacienda Plaza or shopping center has 384 parking spaces, so 311 more than what is required on this site. There are CC&Rs for the entire site that offer shared parking for all uses. So those, if at a peak use, the 17 parking spaces would overflow. There's an additional, over the parking study that staff performed, there's an extra 160 parking spots on that site over the uses that are currently there. Landscaping is in fairly good shape. The trees are healthy. They're only required under our code to have 16 trees and 10% landscaping, and they have quite a bit more. The ground landscaping in some of the spots looks a little rough, a little barren. We have required a condition of approval that they submit a landscaping plan to the satisfaction of the administrator. We've received one public comment in favor of the application. As of today, we've not received any public comments in opposition as of today. I'd go into the findings. It is a conditional use permit. We do have a few findings that we need to address. So conformance and consistency. The proposed minor recreational facility, the shooting range, is a non-residential land use supporting goal MG1. The shooting range would provide a community a new opportunity for firearms training, improving firearm use safety and marksmanship of participants, which include law enforcement personnel supporting policy EV1. The applicant's expanding business operations to Sparks, and the proposed expansion to Sparks would give the applicant the opportunity to grow the successful business in a building that's been vacant for many years, supporting goals MG1 and EV1. Facilitating this business expansion supports goals EV1, EV4, and policy EV6. The city's comprehensive plan considers recreational uses to be in the other category in the MU land use, comprehensive land use. The comprehensive plan states that private recreational facilities that serve the local community are appropriate in the MU land use district. Compatibility. Compatibility with existing and permitted uses of adjacent properties, and whether this application addresses identified impacts. The most concerning compatibility issue would be the adjacency to the single-family residential district to the west. The closest neighbor is about 150 feet from this building. Again, we have a use that is an asset to the community. It's the sound attenuation is, the sound attenuation is adequate, that those impacts are addressed with conditions of approval that require that and acknowledge that. And we have, it offers the police officers a place to train, which is important, because right now the only local ranges in Reno are only open on weekends. So this would be the only range that would be open during weekdays. As far as potential impairment of natural resources, it's an existing building. There's no new construction involved, and nothing else will be changing other than further enhancement of the landscaping. Potential impairment of natural resources. I think I just did that, sorry. Public noticing. Oops. The public notice was given for this item. It was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject parcel boundary. A total of 104 notices were mailed to property owners on February 19th, and public notice was also published in the Reno Gazette Journal on February 21st. That concludes my report. The applicants are here, as well as a representative from the company who manufactures the firing lane units, and they're available for you if you would like to talk to them.
Thank you, Dani. Does any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Carey.
One technical question for staff. How is a shooting range considered a minor recreational facility in our code? I was looking through the use code table. referenced in the staff report, and I got a little confused. I was wondering if you can kind of provide some insight on how a shooting range is a minor recreational facility.
Yes, if you look under definitions for a minor recreational facility, it includes indoor shooting ranges.
Okay. Thank you. I missed that.
Okay.
But so it's kind of grouped with bowling alleys and skating rinks and
It's
that
also
kind of stuff.
interesting because it includes for indoor recreational or minor recreational facility, includes indoor shooting ranges and outdoor shooting ranges are included in that definition.
Any understanding as to why that was put in like that?
It's
The way it is, okay.
It's a recreational facility. Major recreational facilities are usually much larger, big outdoor things like big roller rinks and ice rinks and rodeos and things of a much more grand nature. Wild waters, something like that would be considered major. This is a minor use under our code's definition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
I might have a quick question. The 62, 64 decibel ambient noise rate, do you know about what time that was taken? Because that wouldn't be of all hours of the day. It would be,
No, I don't, but the applicant may be able to speak to that. But
Okay.
that also matches decibel charts that, again, are freely available on the internet, and they're very consistent from organizations like OSHA. If you wanted to look at that for other uses, that's something you may want to look at. It gives comparisons,
across time, different times of the day, or is it?
Yeah, and that 64 to 67 range is for a typical urban street.
Okay.
And we were looking at your higher traffic times, which is, of course, morning peak, throughout the day, evening peak, and then that would tend to fall off as low as 50 decibels,
You know when
according to the charts, but
when is the evening peak time considered to start to fall off? Do you know exactly kind of what time that?
no, I don't, but again, the applicant's representative may be able to.
Okay. Thank you, Danny.
Any other questions before we bring the applicant down? All right, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant. Thank you.
Chris Eastman, work with Spire, the range manufacturer. So to address part of your question, the 64 to 68 falls roughly, human speech is 70. And so the plan with this range, one is the acoustical abatement and material is the first line of defense with those reverberation times. The second line of defense is going to be the CMU block, concrete filled. And the goal with reverberation time is it's just like you think it is. It reflects and bounces off. So the more you can get that abatement and the more divisions before the residential, the better off we are. So you have the sound abatement, you have the 8-inch CMU block wall, and then you have the exterior of the building. Then you have the actual trees and shrubs and before the end of that street. Similar test was done at a range in California, 4-lane street, much like the one to the east of the range area. And they were at 90 dBA, which is the decibel level on their street. So it was actually lower than the street level. To give a comparison there, your lawnmowers are about 110 dBA. Another example, a garbage truck as it drives by is around 100. Interior of the range, you can range from 120 to 160, and then the reverberation with those 3 lines of defense before the exterior of the building cut down significantly to where it's muffled and depleted.
Okay. And we're able to ask questions right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just didn't.
Go
know if you wanted to
ahead,
present anything.
Commissioner Blanco.
And that's taking into account all ammunition types that will be allowed in there.
Correct.
And then to kind of expand on that, what kind of restrictions will you be imposing as far as ammunition types for this shooting range?
The ammunition types would depend on the owner. As far as noise, that's covering the full spectrum. As far as the bullet catch, to almost carry on that conversation. The standard is 24 inches of rubber for ammunition up to 50 caliber, which is very seldom, if ever, used. The penetration on that is 12 to 18 inches. We anticipate a minimum of 30 inches of rubber. So if you equate that, you still have 12 inches of rubber before anything ever continues on. And that keeps everybody safe. The volume is increasingly diminished as well with the noise because that rubber is at the end of the range.
I guess if he can't answer the question about ammunition type restrictions, it might be more appropriate for the applicant, not the applicant's representative.
I think thought that was. Down.
Okay, my name is Rick Collup, and Heather and I own Reno Academy of Combat. As far as the ammunition that we will, that most is available and most is shot in there would be 9mm. That's the most common. Most people shoot 9.40. It's really, really rare to have anything at 50 caliber. Anything higher than that, we haven't really had any negatives to any of those calibers. There's other indoor shooting ranges in Reno, so we're probably going to go the same exact qualifications and everything as them. But the most common ammunition used in the indoor shooting range is 9.40, things of that nature. 380, which is even less.
Okay, I'm just wondering, I'm curious as to, like, I'm aware of different types of ammunition that have armor penetrating characteristics to them and maybe incendiary characteristics. Like, where would you draw the line essentially as far as what's allowed and what's not allowed?
Yes, so the armor piercing will not be allowed, period.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts on that.
Okay,
So, yeah,
for public and for law enforcement.
yes,
correct?
we will not allow that, yeah.
Okay. And you would be checking that as it's
Yes.
going in? Okay.
Yes. Yep, and I believe all the other, there's 2 other indoor ranges, and I believe they all have their own checks and environments, and we're gonna follow the same exact quality control.
Okay, that makes sense. I had one more quick question, and
Yes.
I was just wondering if you would be renting firearms or selling ammunition out of your
Yes.
facility as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
I've got a question. I want back to statistics, man, later, but I'll ask you first. You're reserving 2 lanes for police. Is that not right?
We have 4 lanes of the tactical. It's basically a tactical lane use. It's not necessarily exactly for police. It's for, we would probably do the CCWs for the state of Nevada in there. It's for those kind of situations.
I understand that, and I'm not too worried about that. But I'm worried about for the private people coming in. Have you got safety personnel watching these people?
Yes, sir. There'll be chief range safety officers, range safety officers. Heather and I are chief range safety officers for NRA as we speak. So we will have all that covered.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
And then, if I may ask a question to the safety, or to the statistics again. I heard you mention 8-inch block, and I think you reported a 12-inch block surrounding. Is that 8 or is it 12?
Yeah, come on down. You're all gonna be down here at this point.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, Paul Slocum, Montana Building Group General Contractor for the application. It'll be a 12-inch block wall.
All right, and now then the decimals, were they taken on full head joint? This used to be my business for 60 years, so I know it. Is decimals taken with full head joints or just the regular web joints?
On the block itself?
On the 12-inch block. Because you can grout them solid as you want. If you don't have a full head joint, you're not
No,
going
it'll
to
be
say
full.
decimal.
And the outside walls will go all the way to the roof deck. And there will be a block wall that splits the tactical range from the public range also.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had
Any-
one more just follow-up question. I
Commissioner Blanco.
apologize. And it's for the applicant. I just wanted to make sure that I understood this clearly. Does he need to come back down, I guess? I'm
Yes,
sorry,
you're gonna
Rick.
need
I
to come back
apologize.
down.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. I appreciate your cooperation. So you're not restricting the caliber of ammunition, just the type of ammunition?
No, we,
Can you state your name again?
this is Rick Collup, owner of Reno Academy Combat. As far as what have Chris and what the other indoor shooting ranges in the United States, a lot of people, it's kind of on a personal level to the calibers. The range that we are going to provide is good for all levels of calibers, but we probably will restrict like anything outrageous, of course. So it's just going to be normal self-defense, normal rifles, things of that nature.
Great. Metal jackets and nothing?
Yes.
No crazy?
Yes, no, that, yeah, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, Commissioner Carey.
A couple questions for Rick, and Chris, come on down too. Thank you guys for the information. I guess I'll start with Rick. Kind of, I'm interested in kind of the hours of operation. You've stated in the application 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Staff had kind of mentioned about setup and tear down. Would you be okay with 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. in terms of hours of operation?
9 a.m. to 7 p.m. as opposed to?
8 to 8? 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any, I think that we were going to follow 7 p.m. actually.
Okay.
I think we were just, I think there was allowability to be at 8 p.m., but I believe that most ranges do close at 7 p.m. So
That's
yes,
kind of
yes, sir.
my understanding too.
Yes.
And just trying to look at the impact. And then Commissioner Blanco, I think hit you on the kind of weapons and the caliber of the ammunition. And I think I know the answer, but just want to get it on the record. This isn't like one of those, a touristy kind of shooting ranges where you can go in, pay $100, pick five different guns off the wall and then shoot them. This is strictly for, in association with your other business, with the gym and the self-defense training and that sort of thing.
Yes, I mean, so what we do CCWs for the state of Nevada. We probably do one every Saturday. With this indoor shooting range, it would allow us to do it during the week also, because we're asked many, many times to do like on Wednesdays. It'll allow that's more what we're capturing, self-defense for people, maybe children, things like that. Possible contest.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, Rick.
Yes.
Couple questions for Chris concerning the ventilation system and the range itself. Obviously, I like the name of the ventilation system, Carries. I think it's probably pretty high quality.
Good quality.
I was curious in terms of the system itself, does it generate any kind of extra noise as opposed to a standard HVAC system?
Very similar to an HVAC. It is on the exterior of the building. I know Carries typically will also have a silencer on the end of their blower, which helps with sound. But I mean, it will be an outdoor HVAC system, so there is some sound there, but it's not. It's
nothing outside of what a typical noise generated from an HVAC system. And does that HVAC system run all the time, or is it only when the range is in operation?
When the range is operational. So from an owner standpoint, to run additional electrical when there's nobody in there would not make financial sense for them. So if there's nobody in the range, that's not on. So you'll have a startup time, obviously, that if someone comes in first thing in the morning, they're obviously going to want to have that running. But as the slow hours and as time goes on, they'll understand that there's some hours where if one side's empty and the other sides aren't going to run, both sides when one doesn't need to be. So.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Any
I'd
other
like to make one comment. Just
Commissioner Blanco.
seconding the hours of operation. I feel that's a much more appropriate time frame to be having something that's as in such close vicinity to residential's. I think that 7 PM is probably sufficient for that.
Do you mind if I address your ammunition question a little bit more?
Go, please do.
So a standard range, the overhead baffling can be 1/4 inch, and that's for any type of pistol use. Rifle use, they suggest 3/8, and we're using 3/8 on both sides. So even though there may be pistols shooting, we're accounting for any range of rifle on the range, as well as, like I mentioned, the rubber is going to be an additional 12 inches thick on a 50 cal.
You're counting for maybe everything, but you may not allow it. You would.
Yeah,
may not
that's up to them.
allow a
We've
50
accounted
caliber,
for it,
but-
so the safety of the area and the safety of the shooter is accounted for regardless of the ammunition that's allowed.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Further questions, comments?
I'm good
All
now.
right.
I'm all right, thank you.
Well, this is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to comment on this item, come on down. I guess there's no card. All right, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing. Are there any other questions by staff? I mean, for the staff, or any further discussion by the commission? Go ahead, Commissioner Carey.
No questions for staff. I'll just kind of lead off the discussion if I may. As one of the property owners within 200 feet of the proposed site, I did some walking in the neighborhood this weekend, talking to my neighbors, and I think kind of the general consensus from the folks that I talked to was they were kind of confused how shooting range was kind of lumped in our code with bowling alleys, and that was kind of a tough explanation, but they were concerned about noise and other sorts of issues. But I think the prevailing kind of sentiment from my neighbors was, wanting to see this building back in use. It's been vacant for, I think, 12 years now. And certainly, I guess I'm a little frustrated with our code and how it's written up and lumping shooting ranges in with bowling alleys and skating rinks and that. I think it's, the impacts are very different, and I think it should have its own use called out. The concern that I have in general with the way our code is constructed with respect to shooting ranges is that, if this was 100% of the building, a shooting range, we would probably be having the same discussion and the same conditions of approval. There's no way to really mitigate it. I think with respect to this application and how it's kind of it's not the major use. We have the gym and we have the classes and that it's it's an associated use. The proposed impacts seem acceptable this close to a neighborhood. So I would just kind of make those general comments about our code, and I would encourage us when we do the next update, we take a look at that. I've certainly added that to my list of code update things that I'd like to see. But I certainly appreciate staff's attempt to mitigate the impacts, appreciate the information from the applicant and their application. A lot of technical information. I think we've done a pretty good job of addressing those sound impacts and the other parking impacts as well too. I think in terms of the hours of operation, I disagree with the way condition number 4 is currently constructed. I would propose that we modify condition number 4 to be open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. My concern is the impacts to the neighborhood. I don't agree from 8 to 8, but 9 to 7 I think would do a better job of impacting those noise impacts and into the adjacent uses. I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Prepared to make a motion then.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blako.
I move to approve the conditional use permit CU 20-0001 associated with PCN 20-0002, adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 7 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
First by Commissioner Blako and a second by Commissioner Peterson. Any discussion? Commissioner Carey.
Discussion, if I may. I disagree with the motion. I think the hours of operation should be 9 AM to 7 PM. I'd ask maybe if the commissioner who made the motion would amend the motion to amend condition number 4.
I would like to amend that motion, yes. To condition number 4, restricting the hours of operation from 9 AM to 7 PM, please.
We have another second.
No, somebody else have to second.
I would second the motion, but I'm not sure in terms of Robert Rules of Order if
Yeah.
the seconder has to.
The original seconder does not have to second, but the motion to amend the original motion does have to be voted upon before the first motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion to amend.
So we are voting on the second motion, at the amended motion, right?
We'll vote on the first one first.
Oh, do we have to vote on the first one first?
So the second motion was a motion to amend the original motion.
Right.
That motion to amend must be voted upon before the original motion as amended or as not amended, depending on the outcome of that vote, is voted on.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
Does that make sense?
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion, a first by Commissioner Blanco and a second by Commissioner Pritsos. All those in.
To amend the motion.
To amend
Yes.
the motion, thank you.
But we
all-
never voted on the first motion.
We have to do
We
this
have
one
to vote
first.
on the amendment.
We are
You have to
voting
vote
on the
first
amendment
motion
first.
Right?
No, you have to
Amendment
vote on the motion to amend before you can vote on the original motion.
Oh,
We're voting to
so we're
amend.
vice versa.
Yes.
Okay, are we clear? We're voting to
Certainly
amend
not.
the
Clear as
Clear as mud.
Go
All right,
ahead.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes. So then we
Vote on the.
vote on the amended motion, right? Okay,
Yes.
so I need to probably get that restated, or no?
If you want to restate it, just
Okay,
so
we
the
don't.
record is crystal clear, you can, but you don't have to under Robert's rules.
Okay. Do we want to need it restated? Okay, are we ready to have a vote? Wait, it was Commissioner Blanco on the amendment, and was it?
Frank,
No,
Was the second.
Yes.
on the original.
on,
On the original motion, which has now been amended
right,
by vote. Yes.
okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the amended motion with the change to condition number 4, changing the hours of operation from 9 AM to 7 PM.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Blanco. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay,
Opposed?
nay.
All right, we have one nay by Commissioner Peterson. Does that pass with a?
Yes, it
3,
does.
4, okay. All right, thank you. All right. Next, let's move on to general business. Thank you. First, we have PCN 20-0001, which is consideration of and possible action on a request to approve architectural building elevations for 4-story, 54,766 square foot hotel in Zone A of the Legend Shopping Center in fulfillment of the requirements set forth in the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook.
Again,
Thank you,
good evening, Chair
Danny.
Reed, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Danny Ray, planner, for the record. This is located in the Legends Plan Development that we discussed earlier today. It's located in the southeast corner of Sparks Marina Lake on a approximately 1.48 acre site in Zone A of the Legends Plan Development. It's generally located west of Sparks Boulevard and north of I-80. And the site is zoned NUD for new urban development and is subject to the requirements of the Legends Plan Development Handbook, Legends at Sparks Marina, Destination Retail Development. I'll just call it handbook from this point forward. The proposed elevations are for, as you said, 54,748 square foot, 4-story hotel. The handbook requires that architectural elevations for new buildings within the Legends Plan Development be evaluated and approved by the Planning Commission. And the architectural guidelines require that design from the surrounding retailers and outbuildings shall conform to the City of Sparks Design Standards Manual. And the architectural design of this particular building and the external building materials shall be consistent with the architectural design of the main retail center. And architectural elevations shall be subject to review and approval by the Planning Commission, as I said. At the pedestrian level, right along here, we see a little person right there. A mixture of ledgestone and glass does provide relief through the use of metal and fabric canopies. Has building articulation, both vertical and horizontal, with bold and muted colors. By bold, this very dark, nearly black, along with more of a creamy white, and the processed cyan, it's called, and processed yellow. Those colors are the branding colors for branding identification for true hotels. And it's nice accent. It's not overwhelming at all. It's a nice accent to the other colors that are on there and add visual interest and detail to the building. These proposed elevations do conform to the handbook and the city's design standards manual and the design standards provided in the Sparks Municipal Code. The colors and materials are in a palette consistent with the buildings within within the Legends Plan Development. And let's see, let me get to the next one, sorry. Okay. So here's the materials board with the names of the colors. So we have the cultured leadstone here. We have biscuit and Pantone 7C black and processed yellow, processed cyan, and black high gloss, which is all on the metal. We have a varied roof elevations here. And, whoops. Sorry, I lost myself. I don't know what happened there, I'm sorry. There are other hotels around the marina and nearby. There's the Marriott, which is a very similar design, very compatible with that. It may seem a little striking with these branding colors, but again, they are minimal and provide a very nice accent to the building. And with that, that concludes my report. We do recommend approval of these elevations. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Danny, are we reviewing these elevations in relation to the other hotels, or does it match the rest of the development?
It's complementary to the development, which is what's required in the handbook. And certainly by colors, we do see some variation. We have the center mall, as it were, with some little bit different details. But we see as that mall has aged and progressed, there's been different interpretations of those design standards that have a more contemporary and modern flair, which this hotel, like I said, is very similar to a hotel you approved previously.
And in terms of the proposed brick veneer, is it staff's opinion that that's compatible with the main development?
The leadstone?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the color of what's on the screen here and, you know, in relation to Shields and Grimaldi's and, you know, the main center there. Is that the same type of brick
It's
that's
not
being
this-
used?
No, this building doesn't have any brick. It just has the leadstone on it.
Okay.
And the color is, you know, the shades are somewhat different. I would say these shades are very similar to what's on Shields, which is adjacent. It's just going to be right across the parking lot from it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come down? Provide any additional comment or?
Dan Van Zeven with Van Zeven Architecture. I've actually enjoyed tonight's session, and I would say I think the only full metal jacket thing that we may have is the water heaters. We are very excited to be here in Sparks. We think this is an excellent site for a hotel, particularly this true brand that is a Hilton brand from the Hilton flag. This is the fifth true that we have developed across the Intermountain West, and think that it's a very good addition of a select service hotel to this market. I also might mention that the amenities package relative to being here and in the Legends development is probably one of the best amenities package we have with the other hotels, and we develop anywhere between 4 and 5 hotels a year. I also might mention, I don't have a whole lot more to say other than in the selection of the masonry material or the stone material. One of the things we did, when I came out initially, we brought a couple of different actual sample boards of various materials that we were anticipating to use. And our goal was to not only meet a compatibility with the Legends development, but also to pick up some of the colors of the surrounding hillside. And I believe that, if I do say myself, we selected a product that really does work with the natural elements that we have around here. The other item is that I just have to say something nice about your staff as well. We do a lot of development in a lot of different municipalities, and it's unusual but very welcome when people who really know and understand all of the elements and even some of those secret kinds of things in ordinances and whatnot, when we can have people who work for a municipality who are willing to share that information, it's really beneficial, and your staff has done that very nicely. So we are looking very forward to being part of the Sparks community.
Thank you, and we think our staff is fabulous too. Does any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blake.
I would just like some sort of like reassurance, just seeing how we only have the elevation from the east, that we're only looking at it from the east, that the coloring will be similar on the other side, looking at it from the west. I do see this, but this is more of like a digital rendering, and I know that these can change quite substantially, and I just want to make sure that it's not just sticking out like a sore thumb out there and not really taken advantage of.
I will mention that in the production of the construction drawings and the development, the 3D modeling that we've done here, it's very difficult to recreate accurate color in renderings. Commissioner Carey, you mentioned just color on the screen. We do pick from RBG numbers the colors and try to represent them so that when they're on our full color screens, they represent what the color of the material is, and we have used that on these renderings. A couple of additional things. As you can guess, most of these types of branded hotels are prototypical. often they get just plunked down into a site without a lot of consideration for the local area because of the requirements and because of wanting to be compatible with the area. Anyway, we've done that. You'll also notice on this elevation through here, we actually modified the plan, have approval from Hilton to do it, but we do a lot of Hiltons, so they give us a fair amount of flexibility on that. To get the textural context that we want to have on the building, we actually made those three end rooms larger so that we could get additional articulation. So we've really tried with great emphasis to meet the requirements of the city, of the Legends Handbook, and to make it a compatible and pleasing aesthetic element around all four sides. Obviously, we want the side looking out to the marina to be a really spectacular look. And we made some great efforts, as you can see, so that we can actually bring elements from the hotel and activity and our patrons in the hotel, our guests, down to the pathway as well. It's a wonderful amenity. I know that in the original design concepts for the Legends, when there were restaurants in that location, there was discussion about having those buildings approach the pathway, and we've tried to do the same thing for our guests.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Carey?
This will be my last question, I promise. Dan, why aren't you using brick veneer instead of the limestone?
Well, it's a cultured stone rather than a brick. Sorry.
No problem.
Defining it too closely. Part of that was that when we noticed the materials that were on the Hampton, they had a combination of stone and brick. And I'll just very frankly, I'm not a big fan of the combination of clay brick with stone materials. I'm more of a purist, I guess, in that sense that I like to minimize the number of materials that are on a building, simplify some of those elements to make them a little bit more approachable. And so that was the choice that we had on this. And again, we wanted to use the stone in my sense of the surroundings and looking out to the hills and other things. I just felt like the stone had a more compatible use than a manufactured material like brick.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pritzes.
Just like a real quick question on the 3D rendering that's facing the marina. Is that where the existing path is, or is that slightly modified?
It's modified. We are in the process, and we have hired and engaged Odyssey Engineering to do our civil work. They are in the process of doing the realignment. We've already worked out all of the realignment legalities with the city. This is the original location for the pathway when these two lots were to be developed. And in that process, and just so you're aware, we have the requirement that we will have to complete the new pathway location, the pathway in the new location prior to starting construction of the building.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Blako?
Do you have any idea of when you might be starting that construction on that pathway?
As soon as we can get a permit. We would anticipate, based on my conversation with Frank today, and if we can get it very quick, we would like to see starting within 30 days.
Do you have any idea about the time frame that particular section of the pathway will have to be closed in order to?
It won't need to be, because we're not starting construction of the building, so that the original pathway that's there with the asphalt paving can stay open. And we will segregate construction activities from that pathway so it can continue to be operated. We'll have some cross access that we need to do by bringing equipment over. But the intent is to keep the pathway operational while we are building the new section.
Okay.
And the contractor that I was talking to thought that he could do most of that work with the riprap and within 60 days of construction.
Okay.
Armando, go ahead.
Commissioner Blanco, I think we're wandering a little far afield here from the agenda.
Yeah, we're voting on
So
the
this is, this item is strictly approval of the elevation, so while it's informational, you know, your questions here, I suppose, they're outside the scope of what we're considering here tonight.
Okay.
And I talk too much.
Any other comments, discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blanco.
I move to approve the architectural elevations for a new hotel building in Zone A of the Legends Shopping Center in fulfillment of the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook.
Thank you. We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second by Commissioner Pritzos. Any further discussion? Commissioner Carey.
Yeah, I disagree respectfully with the staff on this one. I don't feel that the materials are consistent with the rest of the shopping center. I think it's going to stand out. It's not the worst project we've ever seen. I think it's a very high quality, and I'm excited to have another hotel, the Legends, but I just don't think it does enough to blend in. I don't like the materials, and I will not be supporting the motion, unfortunately.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Any other comments? All right, we have a motion. Let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. This is general public comment on items that do not appear on the agenda. And seeing no public comment, we will go ahead and close public comment and move on to announcements from staff and commissioners. Go ahead.
The Armando Arnels, Assistant Community Services Director, I did indicate to you that I would let you know as to whether we would be having a second meeting in March. That second meeting will not be necessary, so the next meeting of the Planning Commission will be on April 2nd.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Commissioner Carey?
Yeah, just a quick announcement for the commission. It's been in the news recently, and the Washoe County Lands Bill has popped up again, and the City of Sparks, City of Reno, and Washoe County are all moving forward on crafting the framework of legislation that would include potential disposal of federal lands around the Truckee Meadows, and then some changes in wilderness areas and conservation areas in northern Washoe County. Very interesting concepts. The county has a really neat website, landsbill.org, has an interactive map. You can take a look at the agency requests for lands and the stuff that's going on in northern Washoe County. I bring that up because it's a very big piece of legislation. It's moving forward very quickly, and I think it could have an impact on our comprehensive plan. And I encourage you to check out landsbill.org, and for the public as well too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other announcements? All right, with that, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.